Hello and welcome once again to Abbott and Costello Meet the Podcast. Today it's episode 15, Here Come the Co-Eds. I'm Jerry Shario, and here come the host of our podcast, a man who promises to be out of your guest bedroom by early next week, Nick Santamaria.
Hi, everybody. Hi, and I'll bet you are. I had to finally ask my guest bedroom to leave because they stay, just long enough, and they start smelling like Ben Franklin's fish, if you know what I mean. Yeah. But anyway, we are here, and I'm here to say hello to my good friend and partner, Jerry. How are you, Jerry?
I'm doing well, sir. Doing well. How about yourself?
Shario. I didn't want you to think I didn't know how to pronounce your name.
Never a question. But
Okay.
You know what just struck me just now this very second?
Your wife.
No. She does that other times.
Okay.
I'm sitting here in Spokane, Washington. You're sitting there in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
We couldn't be further away from each other if we tried.
Absolutely.
And yet here we are coming together for this wonderful event, this wonderful project. And I just have a ball. I look forward to these sessions every time.
I'm so glad that you feel that way, because this is something that I look forward to. Really, the 2 weeks we're away, I'm like, well, can't we do this every day? I really, really, really enjoy it. And I have to say that it's not easy. I do a lot of research. Mm-hmm. I do a lot of, I make a lot of notes. I have 7 pages back and front here in front of me, and even little notes that are addendums to the other notes. So I'm very noteworthy. So notes to you. So Jerry, how are you? Let's get this out of the way. How you doing? How's
okay?
Everything?
I'm doing well. It's been an interesting couple of weeks.
Yeah. How so?
My 9 to 5 is in an office setting, law firm, kind of drab, dry, and just basically keeping the place running. I'm not a lawyer or anything, but we had a Halloween costume contest on Halloween Day. Uh-oh. And they were offering a first prize of $100 Amazon gift card. And man, I heard that, and the actor in me went, okay, let's go for it.
Free stuff.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of fun preparing for that. I found out that our receptionist had been a flight attendant. She was in the 80s, late 80s, early 90s.
So she was a stewardess.
Both, because that's about when the transition happened from stewardess to flight attendant. Yeah.
Well, I didn't know there were many trans, but okay.
Yeah, well, there you go. Yeah, so I figured, what the heck? I spent all of Halloween Day at the office as flight attendant Betsy. And
I got to tell you, musical theater people. Betsy?
That's her name? Yeah, that's her name, Betsy. And so my biggest concern was if she was going to think it was a good idea or not, because I didn't tell anybody. I just showed up that day as Betsy. And man, she went over the moon. She was so thrilled and tickled, and she just thought it was the greatest thing. Mm-hmm. And when it was announced that I won the $100 gift card, first thing she said to me was, "So what are you going to get me?"
I'd imagine you'd have moved into first class, knowing that you had that extra 100, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And you're one classy guy. So yeah, and you won. Wow, $100 Amazon. I can't. I'm racking my brain trying to figure out what you're going to get me. But anyway, we're moving on. We are talking about a film that I find really funny.
Yes.
And after last week, there was sort of a dearth of funny. There was sort of a paucity of funny.
Yes.
We were light on the funny, but there were moments in Lost in Harem that definitely will stay with me for sure. Mm-hmm. Mostly Ralph Sanford's nose, but other than that, we are talking about the second movie they made once they were back at Universal after their long breakaway. Here Come the Co-Eds. Now, the title, Jerry, it doesn't make sense really. Because a co-ed is a female student matriculating at a male school, at a,
Could,
a what do you call it? A unisex school.
yeah.
So they are not co-eds. Actually, Bud and Lou could be misconstrued as co-eds
Yes.
in this situation, but they aren't actually students, although they learn a few lessons from Lon Chaney Jr., who is especially brutal in this movie. He made a movie called San Antonio Rose with Shemp Howard, and really, had a nice cast. Had Eve Arden and some of the Universal people, and they were looking to team Lon and Shemp, and it just didn't work because Lon made Mo Howard look like a flower child. Um, he made Mo look like that girl who put the flower in the cannon, in China. You expected Shemp's head to go over the goalpost, every time he was slapped, and it was more brutal and uncomfortable than funny. And I find a few Stooge things like that too. Like a climbing spike in Curly's eye. That kind of pushes me away a little bit. Yeah. But in this movie, we have Abbott and Costello in a college setting. Bixby College. I think that's where Bill learned how to be Bixby. Jerry's turning green. He's getting bigger.
You won't like me when I'm amused.
And that's most of the time I'm talking.
Exactly.
But regardless of that, Here Come the Co-eds is a wonderful way to spend like 87 minutes with two of our boys and a really nice cast, I have to say. And even the music I find really, and you know what? It's music that I have a feeling a lot of my contemporaries are going to hit the fast forward button after hearing like a couple of notes. But to be honest with you, as a person who grew up in chorus in school every year, and I learned to appreciate the art of choral singing, this is one of the best examples of that I've ever heard, actually. And it's really quite beautiful and haunting. There's even some swing numbers and stuff like that. So we'll get around to that when we get around to it. It's a movie that was begun shooting on December 6th, 1944. They worked through Christmas and New Year's, and the movie was released on February 2nd, 1945. Interesting stuff here. The director is second-time director Gene Yarbrough, who is really showing his mettle. He really is, right, Jerry? He did In Society and proved himself, and he's the king of pacing. The man just keeps things moving.
Yes.
Unlike that MGM movie we watched last week, we talked about a couple of weeks ago. This one it's lighter than air, and it just moves like a zephyr in the wind. Wasn't that beautiful?
I like that.
Thank you.
Exactly. You could be a poet.
Oh, I could be a poet. How about that? Which one will I be? I think I'll be Edgar, because then I can have po' boy sandwiches. Ooh. All right. So recovering from that, I will say that we are, by the way, I know I'm jumping the gun a little bit, but this movie got some of the best reviews the boys ever got.
Oh.
Believe it or not. Even the New York Times, the stuffy New York Times, was pointing out just how great the guys were and how the material was better for them in this film, which was interesting because they repeat a couple of things. Also interesting for me is that the campus itself was shot in North Hollywood Park, which I lived around the corner from for 8 years. And it looks exactly the same. Other than the exercise equipment that they added, it looks exactly the same. And it was so cool to see. It really was. It was so cool. I have a few connections in this movie that I will get around to, but they're very interesting. So Gene Yarbrough, you're my hero right now because you are making movies that move. And then we have a couple of good writers. We have Arthur Horman and John Grant. There's a name I've never heard before. Son of a gun. Yes, John Grant is there, but the big news is on In Society, he did producing work with uncredited.
Hmm.
Actually, it's sort of I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? He was going to school on Edmund Hartman. And
Okay.
Edmund Hartman is not the producer of this movie. He was in the last movie, but he did come up with the original story. And John Grant has taken over the producer job. He is now
Yeah.
producer John Grant. Now, to me, this is amazing. These three guys come out of burlesque, maybe, the low tier of popular entertainment.
Yeah.
And the two of them are in the top 10 for 11 years in box
Hmm.
office success. And John Grant is a movie producer. This guy was a straight man in burlesque, managing companies and stuff, and now he's a
Yeah.
movie producer. And how
Yeah.
cool of Bud and Lou to make that possible for him.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah. Yeah.
they were good that way. They were really, really loyal people. And I'm reading more and more now as I do more research, even more research. So many people stayed at their
Mm.
places, and I mean for a long time. They really
Yeah.
put people up. They encouraged them. They got them jobs. They were good Jersey boys. They really were good Jersey boys.
Nice.
Okay, so let's look at the the cast. I'm laughing because we haven't gotten to Phil Spitalny yet. I just love saying his name. Uh, Phil Spitalny.
Hmm.
Spitalny. Like, that's a word to describe when you want to spit, but it lands on your lapel and it just sort of dribbles down. Oh, I Spitalny. Oh, yeah, I've had my fill. All right. So
Oh,
we'll get around to that. But we do have some interesting people in the lesser roles.
yes.
Don Costello is one who is one of my favorite character actors. Don Costello he's a menace. He's always hired to play a menace, whether
Hmm.
he's on the side of the law or the side of the bad, which he usually is. Um, but he's a very interesting villain that doesn't get enough attention. He's in the Glass Key, the one with Alan
Oh.
Ladd. He's the one with the glasses, and he talks very quietly, and he's very, very vicious. So he plays the boss in this, and he's very good. And Richard Lane, our friend Richard Lane, who I always thought
Hmm.
could play Bud's role if he really wanted to. He even wears a toupee. He's in it also, and he's very funny. But let's talk
Yeah.
about the main players, okay? We are at another Abbott and Costello movie where they have decided to team Lou with a very, very talented young lady, a very, very
Yes.
funny young lady, right?
Yes.
Let's talk about Peggy Ryan. Peggy Ryan was born in 1924. She was 3 years old when she joined her family vaudeville act, the Merry Dancing Ryans. That's what it was
Mm.
called. And, she was in vaudeville her entire childhood. She was seen by Universal casting people, and she was given her first role 1937. Top
Mm.
of the Town, a very high budget bomb, actually, from Universal. I tried watching it once. It's on YouTube, and it's tough going. And she made some short films along the way. And let's see, her marriages. She actually this movie was released in 1945.
Hmm.
By 1946, she was out of Universal. She was gone. She had married someone in a short-lived marriage. That was 1946. She was divorced in 1952. In 1953, she married Ray McDonald, who we talked about on this podcast, who was the brother of Grace McDonald, a
Hmm.
Universal, starlet and leading lady, I should say, very
Yeah.
talented and pretty. And she married him, but divorced him in 1957. Now, we talked about Ray McDonald. He was a depressive, and he was very, very at a very bad time of life at this time. And eventually, he choked on hotel food in New York,
Mm.
and that's how he died. Poor Ray McDonald. But she ended up marrying another fellow. His name was coincidentally Eddie Sherman, who was,
Yes.
the name of Abbott and Costello's manager. And they had a happy marriage for a good 30 years or so. They ended up in Hawaii, where she played the secretary in Hawaii Five-O for like 12 years.
Yes.
How about that?
I used to watch that show and never made the connection.
That's her. That's that little perky, cute little Peggy Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
And it made me think to myself, because, when we were writing the book, The Annotated Abbott and Costello, I wrote the chapter on the 30-Foot Bride of Candy Rock, right? The one movie Lou made away from Bud. And I made sort of a point to say how icky it was that Lou at 50, whatever he was, 52 years old, was in love and marrying Dorothy Provine, who looked 19. It didn't work. It just didn't work. And I thought to myself, maybe this is the same situation, but you know what? It's not. It's not. She was 21 when she made this film. Lou was like 39, but I've seen worse than that. That's not bad. And I made this point once with Matthew Coniam, and he agreed with me like 100%. This was about the criticism that Lou got when he released Jack and the Beanstalk, that he was too old to play Jack. And I just said, you know what? No, he wasn't. It's Lou Costello. He's a kid. He's got the face of a kid. He's a kid. You just have to, you accept that. That's his character. But anyway, I felt that way about this, and I thought they made a great team.
Yes.
So let's see. She was also a part of something called the Jiving Jacks and Jills. Now, this was something Universal was behind, of course, and it was a series starring these young kids, these teens, late teens, and they were known as the Jiving Jacks and Jills. And Donald O'Connor and Peggy Ryan were the head of this aggregation, and they made a bunch of movies. They were pretty much they called them the B unit Mickey and Judy. Mickey and Judy had the A budgets at MGM. But I'll tell you, Universal films are a lot more fun. So you had them, and there were Grace McDonald was one of them until she came out of that group. And there was, here's my connections. The choreographer, not only of the Jivin' Jacks and Jills, but of this film, Jump In on Saturday Night number, was choreographed by a guy named Louis Dupron. Now, Louis Dupron, 1913, died in 1987. My dear friend, Rusty Frank, who is the queen of tap dancing, who wrote a wonderful book called Tap, Louis Dupron was her teacher for years and years. And just speaks the world of him. And he was a teacher for the rest of his life. So that's one connection. The other one is there was a dancer in the Jivin' Jacks and Jills by the name of Bobby Shear. Bob Shear. He became a television director, directed the Danny Kaye show as well as other variety shows. And he was the live-in partner and lover of my friend, Rusty Frank. So there you go. Those are two connections, actually three, I think, with this film. So, okay, let's look at some other people. I want to talk about Martha O'Driscoll, who I'm in love with. She plays Molly, Bud Abbott's sister. Now, I could see them as children. Bud took my candy. Quiet, what do you say? Little Bud even had that smoker's voice. So Martha O'Driscoll was born in 1922, and she died in 1998 in Ocala, Florida. Good thing, because she would have been blown away a couple of weeks ago with Hurricane Helene. So anyway, she was in a stock show in 1935 in Phoenix, Arizona, of all places. And it just so happens that Fred Astaire's favorite choreographer or co-choreographer, Hermes Pan, went to this production. He happened to be in town, and he made it possible for Universal to give her a screen test, and that started things going. And she was in Crazy House with Olsen and Johnson, Ghost Catchers with Olsen and Johnson. She's in House of Dracula with all the monsters in it. And she's in a special favorite movie of mine, and you're going to think I'm crazy because it's always listed as a bomb. And a lot of people hate it. It's called Lil Abner, and it's 1940. And you ever see it?
Yes.
It's got that great. I can never get out of my head the theme song.
Lil Abner, Lil Abner, every gal in town is after little poor Abner. He's a superman that's swimming. He'll give any man a trimming. But when it comes to kissing pretty women, little Abner goes go, go. Daisy may pursue.
And you know who wrote it?
No.
Milton Berle wrote it. Yeah, you don't get this anywhere else, folks. I'm telling you. You don't get this at the Wendy's down the street. You know. No, you just get fat. So what I find fascinating about Martha O'Driscoll, who, admittedly was absolutely stunning, she went on a USO tour, multiple months. You know who with? Errol Flynn. Ooh, my mind just goes crazy. She married well. She retired in 1947. She was into philanthropy. He was a very wealthy man, and they had places in Chicago and Miami. And she died in Ocala. Let's see the other one. Let's say Dean. The Dean is
Yes.
Donald Cook. Now, Donald Cook is often misrepresented as the person who did not get the part that James Cagney got in Public Enemy. But that was not Donald Cook. That was Donald Woods. Donald Cook played his straight-laced brother who gave him trouble about, stealing and murdering and things like that, little things.
Yeah.
So he was always the, the straight guy, it's like, you don't realize what you're doing. I think he was a streetcar conductor. He comes back from the war and he's a streetcar conductor. I can't believe you're taking nickels, that kind of thing. He was also quite a face on Broadway. And he was the very first Ellery Queen in movies in the Spanish Cape Mystery. And let's see, he was in Showboat, the James Whale's production of Showboat in 1936 at Universal. And let's see, this is interesting. His second wife was Princess Joya Tasca de Couto. They were married in 1937. They stayed together till 1961, the year of his death, but they were separated before he died. And the show he was rehearsing when he died was A Shot in the Dark. And you know who replaced him? Walter Matthau. How about that? You don't get it anywhere else, folks. I'm telling you, you don't get it anywhere else. Okay, the other important person is June Vincent, who plays the good-natured and good sport, the one that he didn't want, the one Donald Cook didn't want. But she handled it very well, I thought, very maturely. She was born in Harrod, Ohio in 1920. She lived 88 years. She died in 2008. She was a model. She went to Universal. From there, she made over 50 films. She was in TV, 50s, 60s, 70s. And I think my favorite June Vincent movie is called The Chase. It's a film noir with her and Bob Cummings and Steve Cochran playing a real crazy, crazy villain. And, he's so crazy that his assistant is Peter Lorre. How crazy do you have to be, Okay. Perhaps my favorite of the character actors in this movie. I'm sorry, pardon my language, but he always plays a pain in the ass. If you need a middle-aged, kind of chunky, kind of puffy pain in the ass, you call Charles Dingle, who had the greatest name in the world. I mean, he's like out of a Rankin Bass Christmas special. Hi, Charles Dingle. Charles Dingle. Let's mingle with Dingle. I think he's single. And here's Der Bingo. So anyway, he's there. He was born in 1887, lasted till 1956. He was 68 years old. He was born in Wabash, Indiana, on the banks of the Wabash. Stock companies. He started when he was 14. He was a leading man by the time he was 18. Did a bunch of Broadway shows, over 50 films. He was a foil in some really great comedies. Bob Hope's My Favorite Brunette. He was in George Washington Slept Here with Jack Benny. He was the pain in the ass who lived across the street or across the way. And, a special favorite of mine, he was in Beast with Five Fingers. Also with Peter Lorre, one of my favorite Peter Lorre performances, actually. It's a hand. He's walking around. So yeah, and then we have from the Amazons, who we'll talk about them in a bit. But
Yeah.
there was one who was not part of the Tip Top Club. That's who they were called. Those were members of the Tip Top Club, and there were thousands all over the country. You had to be over 6 foot, I believe, a woman. And Dorothy Ford, who is 6'2", with measurements 38, 26, 38 and a half, just a big bundle of gorgeous. Born in 1922, passed away in 2010 at the age of 88. She lived a long life. She started out with Billy Rose, his Aquacade. So she was in a bathing suit, and I would have paid. I definitely would have paid. She became one of Earl Carroll's gorgeous girls at Earl Carroll's, which is now Nickelodeon on Sunset Boulevard. She made 39 films, and I remember her from Love Laughs at Andy Hardy, because you can't erase the image of her standing next to Mickey Rooney. You know,
Yes,
it's definitely the 2-level effect at its most blatant. But she shows up in some really good movies. Let's Go Navy with the Bowery Boys. Limelight with Chaplin. It's sort of an extra bit. Feud and Fools, also with the Bowery Boys. Jack and the Beanstalk, of course, with Abbott and Costello again.
Yep.
She also appears on their television show as well. And let's see, Partners with Martin and Lewis. And another special favorite of mine, a horror film, The Indestructible Man, with Lon Chaney Jr., who just happens to be in this movie. So it was old home week. They got together. Do you remember Here Come the Codes? Oh, co-eds. Yes, I remember. Then he turns into the Wolfman and rips out her jugular vein. Okay, and before I forget, we have to mention the musical act. Okay, you get rid of the Andrews Sisters, all right, and you go to Martha Raye. Okay, it's a good trade. All right, Andrews Sisters, Martha Raye, right? And even before Martha Raye, Joan Davis, right? You got a good, nice. Jump over to Martha Raye. Yeah, and then you jump over to Peggy Ryan. Really, really nice, right?
Yep.
Okay, and now we have Phil Spitalny. Okay, I let that sink in. Phil Spitalny was born in what is now the Ukraine in 1890, and he lived to 1970, in fact, in 80 years. And he was a master clarinetist as a child prodigy, came over to America around 1905 and played all the places, all the concert halls, started, fronting orchestras. And then eventually in 1935, he started the all-girl orchestra, the Phil Spitalny's all-girl orchestra, featuring Evelyn and her magic violin. Now, what the hell is that? I'll tell you. I just heard, 5,000 jaws hitting the table. It was basically a really big orchestra, a beautiful concert orchestra, and they were all women, all fairly attractive, all wearing evening gowns, all with really nice teeth. That's what the orchestra was made up of. And he was so ahead of his time. And it's such a shame that some of the feminists don't know who he was, because he was very outspoken about the power of women. He auditioned over 5,000 musicians before he picked the people in this orchestra. And he thought they were just as good as any man. And that was his criteria for hiring. Evelyn Klein, born in New York to a Catholic father and a Jewish mother, which meant Jewish. And I think Phil was too. I think he might have been also coming from what formerly was a Russian address.
Yeah.
But anyway, regardless of that, they got together in 1934, and the orchestra was on the radio. They had a very popular radio show, The Hour of Charm. Matthew Conium writes in the chapter on Here Come the Co-Eds in our book, when he writes the name of the show, The Hour of Charm, he wrote that it makes you realize how far down we've come. You know what I mean? How, as a culture, we couldn't put a show on now called The Hour of Charm. You know, no. People would think it was like Lucky Charms. You know, we're also saturated in advertising. But anyway.
And I think it's also in how you present it. You know, you had made reference earlier to Evelyn and her magic violin. In essence, it's her fingers that are magic. I mean, I love listening to her play and watching her fingering on the violin as she's going through some of these runs.
And when she plucks, incredible.
Yes.
Incredible.
But calling her Evelyn and her magic fingers really wouldn't have gone over as well.
It's almost like a massage product you would buy, you know?
Exactly.
You know? But she is amazing. She's truly amazing. And you can see the pride on his face, too, you know? Mm-hmm. They got married in 1946. I don't know if I mentioned that, but they were very happily married. Yeah. And he passed away, unfortunately, about 20 years before she did. But they were very, very happy together. And it was a very positive thing, that orchestra. And I'm very happy that I can say I enjoy the music. I really do. It's really grown up music. Peggy Ryan and Lou handle all the stuff for the kids. Okay, so let's start the film. The film opens at the Miramar dance place. It's a 10 cents a dance place. You know, you buy a ticket and you dance with the person. So Molly is there. That's Martha O'Driscoll. She's one of the dancers, and she's getting a little tired of this life. But her brother, who is Bud Abbott, Slats is his name. I love that, Slats. And he's her PR man as well. So he's trying to get her name out there as a model. He starts a whole program of PR about her wanting to go to college. That is her dream. And her dream college is a little college out of the way called Bixby. And Bud made it up. He made all this up, and he put ads in newspapers and in the back of magazines and stuff like that. So people got used to seeing that Molly wanted to go to college. Well, we realized then that Bud and Lou are also working as dancers, as taxi dancers, they call them, which is a really strange thing for them to be doing. But Bud is there, and he is chastised by his boss, Don Costello, for not being out on the dance floor and doing his thing. And it's really odd to see Bud getting yelled at, you know?
Yes.
It's a little odd. And he handles it really well. He underplays the scene. And he accepts what the boss gives him. You know what I mean?
Yes, he just does a great job with it.
He really does. He really does. And he looks great. His toupee is perfect in this one. Even better than MGM. But anyway, so he looks for Lou, and Lou is having his own problems. He's first of all, I have to say, when the movie comes in on Bud, it's a star introduction, meaning that he gets a good shot. We know it's him. We know what his story is, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
When we get to Lou, it's a medium shot. He's sitting on the couch by himself, and it looks like he just did something that we missed. It's a very strange way to start the film, or to start Lou, anyway, in the film. I'm sorry.
I'm going to disagree with you. One of the rare occasions where I'm going to disagree with you.
I'm going to cry.
In that, I think it sets up their characters nicely. I mean, we get that good intro to Bud, like you say, and that's who his character is. You know, as always, he's a con man. He's flim-flam. You know, he's always looking for the next big thing.
Right.
But when we get to Lou, he's the little guy. He's, the underdog, as it were. And to me, it kind of highlights those two things.
I get you. No. And that's perfectly acceptable to my way of thinking, honestly. But what I'm thinking of is that, can you remember the two previous films, his entrances? In one, he comes down a fire pole upside down and hits his head on the concrete. And in the MGM one, he destroys the stage when he comes on to take his bow. So this was a little underwhelming for me. That's that those were star entrances. This was kind of like, oh, look, Lou's in the movie. But anyway, I get what you're saying too, because it works either way. But what we're missing is that there was an entire scene before this with Maxine Gates. Now, Maxine Gates was pretty much a female wrestler, and she's quite a big girl. In fact, much bigger than Lou. And they did this whole thing where she bought like 1,000 tickets and wanted to keep dancing with him. And eventually you see his shoes and they're smoking, because he's dancing so much. So this is what we're missing. We're missing a star, entrance.
That makes perfect sense, because when we see him, he looks downtrodden, and the first girl that comes up to him says, "Do you mind if we sit this one out?" And he is so relieved to be able to sit it out. That makes perfect sense now.
See? So, but what I'm saying is, his reaction to the first girl really doesn't make sense the way it is now. I mean, okay, maybe he's tired. We don't know that. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, but anyway, another thing I noticed is that, boy, there's some cute girls there. Boy, they really like Lou, don't they?
Yeah.
Hi, you dance with me, But this is where Richard Layden comes in, and I love this scene. I just love this scene.
Yes.
Lou, he's sitting there with the first girl, and they're sitting on the couch, and Richard Lane comes in. Aha! I've caught you! And he does this entire scene where he accuses her of cheating with Lou, and he takes Lou and he punches him, and Lou lands in a potted plant, a huge potted plant, with the sand in it, and he's laying on the floor. So the guy puts his glasses on, which I'm sure he borrowed from Shemp Howard. Those thick Coke bottle glasses.
Yep.
And he sees and he says, "Oh, I'm sorry. I beg your pardon. You look like my wife. I'm so sorry. I hope you don't think I'm drunk." And then Lou says, "That's okay. I'm a little potted myself." But this happens again. And Bud, every time he enters, seeing Lou on the floor with all the sand and everything, he, in his true, altruistic way, an understanding way, "What are you doing? The minute I turn my back, you're playing in the sand. Get out of here!" But it's very funny and it's very good. But the punchline actually is the great Dorothy Granger, who I love. She must have made more two-reelers than any other woman that I can think of. She was Leon Errol's wife in those 100 shorts. It's just amazing. But whenever they needed a very curvy, busty kind of girl, they would go to Dorothy Granger. And she's a big girl. So she comes in and she sees Bud berating Lou, and she takes him and throws him into the pot, and he's on the floor. And that's the punchline. But I do have an interesting and even more interesting punchline that will set people going to their freeze frame. Lou starts a fight, and the boys have to hightail it. They have to get out of the club. And there's a shot from, let's say the back of the camera is at the front door, and the boys are running towards it to get out of the club. Mm-hmm. Bud has to do a little leap over someone. And when he does, the back of his toupee goes flying up. It lasts like a split second.
Oh my gosh.
It's the kind of thing I love. I'm such a sick person. But yeah, you'll see Bud in flight, or at least his doily is in flight. So anyway, then they do the whole business where Bud encourages Lou to steal a car so they can get away, and then when they find out it's a police car, he blames Lou for stealing it.
Of course.
This is the Abbott and Costello dynamic, and it's okay with me. So they're driving, and it's so funny. The descriptions. One is medium height, light hair, and blue eyes. The other one is short, fat, and stupid. I'm sorry, but that's really funny. So they go back, and this is so funny. They bring the car back, and there are cops all over. They're congregating on the street talking about the stolen car. And the boys come up and say, "We have your car. It's okay. We returned it. We took it by accident. We're sorry. And we'd like to pay for the gas we used." So they're like, "No, that's not necessary." It's like, no. We want to pay for it. So they measure it. Lou says something that this has stayed in my head since I was a young teenager when I first saw this movie. The cop says, "Measure it, Flanagan." And Lou says, "Measure it, Flanagan. Measure it." He's yelling at him. And I hear it whenever I hear the name Flanagan. I hear, "Measure it." So it turns out to be like 60 cents or something like that. They give him the thing. Bud gives him a cigar, the chief of police a cigar. And of course, Lou lights the match where the gas was. And there's a huge explosion, which all the cops are in, blackface and, their clothes are ripped up. And Bud and Lou, I love this ending. They're up on top of the sign, the neon sign for the Miramar Ballroom, and Lou is dancing with the neon girl, the sign girl. And it's a great way to fade out. That was a great opening scene.
Yes.
And I have to hand it to Gene Yarborough. He's just, it's bing, bang, boom. It's just great. Mm-hmm. Okay. So they're back to their apartment, and they're trying to get out of town because they still feel that the cops are after them. And a knock comes to the door, and Lou says, "Come on, the fire escape." He goes out the window, and Bud's like, "Wait a minute, we don't have a fire escape." And they cut to Lou hanging on the window ledge about 90 stories up, of course. And they have to pull him back in. But anyway, it turns out to be the dean of the real Bixby College. And of course, Lou has to make a Dizzy Dean joke. Did you ever pitch for the St. Louis Cardinals? And my British co-author, Matthew Conium, had to look up the Dizzy Dean reference. Because he never played cricket, I'm afraid. No. So here's the deal. The dean wants Molly to come and fulfill her dream. Right? He still believes that this is her dream. And so he arranges it that she will come on a scholarship to Bixby, which is an all-girls school, and Bud and Lou would be caretakers at the college, actually assistant caretakers, because the main caretaker is someone who doesn't care. And that is Lon Chaney Jr., one of my favorite actors. I'm going to say that. Acting shouldn't always be judged on ability. It should be on likability and how often do you go back, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Some of Lon's movies are the ones that I've watched most often in my lifetime, and I have to happily admit that. He was one of the kings of Universal Horror, the second string of Universal Horror. Yeah. So, and he's here, and he is a formidable foil. He is rough and tumble, let me tell you. So they get to the college, and right away they start trouble. Lou seems to attract very cute women. I don't know what the deal is. He's walking down the road, the college road, which is actually the North Hollywood Park, and girls keep dropping their handkerchiefs so he could pick them up, and flirt. They must have been at that school a long time, and they're not been like a city nearby, So, no, Lou's cute. Are you kidding? So finally he meets Peggy Ryan, and she is just adorable. She takes over the scene, calls him Chubby. Hiya, Chubby. Pinches his cheeks and blah, blah, blah. And that's it. He's hers at that moment. Yeah. There's no denying. And he turns to us and says,
"She's cute."
Yes, that really stuck out to me because I may be wrong, but is that the first time he does a fourth wall break in any of these movies?
Oh, no, he does. I think he breaks the record in Hit the Ice. I'll bet you thought I was going to fall in, didn't you?
Right. Yeah. Right. But yes,
yeah.
The moment here is just so beautiful. Yeah.
It really is. It really is. He's confiding in us, and we know they're a pair now, which is great. Mm-hmm. So anyway, they want to get a picture with Molly, with Martha O'Driscoll, on the statue of Bixby, whoever he was. And that's when Charles Dingle comes in, the pain in the butt. He right away wants her off that statue. "You are not going to do this to the school. My mother went here. My mother's mother went here. Her mother went there." Anyway, it's a mother of a college. And so he gets up and he starts pulling her off the thing. And of course, she kind of falls into his arms, and Bud takes a picture that comes into play later on. Anyway, so that's that. Everybody introduces everybody. Bud and Lou now have to go to their quarters as assistant caretakers, and it's a mess. They really need to clean it up. And Lon Chaney Jr. makes sure that they know they have to clean it up. And Lou, immediately, he's very, very angry.
Hey, you. There's only one reason why I don't punch you in the nose, and that's because I'm bigger than you are.
I'm bigger than you are.
That's a better reason.
Get to it.
I want to say something about this scene. Mm-hmm. When I watch this scene, and Bud is great, believe me, but this is Lou's scene.
Oh, yeah.
He's as good as any of the silent comedians in this. He doesn't need to be talking. He doesn't, we don't need to hear him. It is just one hilarious moment after another. Now, it was originally written and actually performed, I believe, in Pardon My Sarong during the storm on the boat. Mm. But they didn't use it there, and they saved it for here. And I got to tell you, I don't know how to explain it. He does the old Harry Langdon joke where he wants to sweep under the rug, and he lifts the rug up, and it says, "Don't put it here." It's actually written there, and he goes to the other side and he picks it up and it says, "Here either." And that was originally done in a short called Saturday Afternoon. I think it was 1925 at Senate. Harry Langdon. Anyway, who really inspired Lou somewhat, I have to say. Harry Langdon inspired more people than you care to admit, or that I care to admit, especially Stan Laurel. But anyway, so Lou is cleaning up, and Bud sends him into the kitchen, and this is where it all begins. The pig drawing.
Oh, yes.
I love this moment. He walks into the kitchen. It's a mess, and he looks at the wallpaper, and there is like a little spot on the wallpaper. And it's weird. It's a weird kind of almost like a pencil thing, like something you would do with your eyes closed. Let's put it that way. He sees a piece of, a pencil. He picks it up and he turns this squiggly thing into a picture of a little pig with a curly tail. And then he draws a frame around it with a wire that goes to a nail. And it's there. The whole scene, it's there. He turns the stain into a picture of a pig. And then they even give it a close-up, which I love.
Yes.
It's such a sweet little moment. But anyway, so he wants to start cleaning up. He grabs the soap, and the soap flies out of his hand up onto the highest shelf, of course. So he's got to get up onto the sink to reach the shelf. Now, I don't even know where to begin in this. Anything that can happen to a person while they're cleaning a kitchen happens to Lou. I'm leaving out my favorite thing. At the very beginning, he puts on an apron and gets it caught in the washing machine, and it starts choking him. It pulls him in, and it starts choking him. So that's just at the very beginning. He ends up stepping into an enormous, what would you call that? The dough, where the dough is kept.
Probably a large pan. Yeah,
a large pan filled with dough. And so Lou steps in it. So he's got his 1 foot in dough. Then he grabs this can that, is on the counter, and it's molasses. Mm-hmm. So everything he touches sticks to his hands, which are now full of molasses. Bud comes in and doesn't help anything by screaming at him, "What are you doing?" I love the way Bud says doing. "What are you doing?" And it just screams at Lou, and he gets involved, and he gets the molasses stuck on him, and eventually they're throwing dough at each other. And then the ending. I'm sorry, but the ending. At the very end, Lou is finally, free of everything, and he falls backwards, and his butt goes into the pan of dough and fade out. It's just magical from beginning till end. It is. It's them at their best. I really feel that this is them at their best. And when people just say, a lot of people only like Abbott and Costello because of the burlesque routines, because of the dialogue routines back and forth. But what they're missing is the physical stuff, the physicality. Lou Costello was so gifted that way. And you're missing out if you're only looking at the old burlesque routines. Oh, yeah. Anyway, so that's one of my faves. That's when the first song comes along, and that's a song called "We Will Remember," and it is done a cappella, just a choral group of women. And it's on a moonlit night in front of the Time of Your Lives house on the Universal property. That takes the place of the college administration building, is the same building they use, or facade they used for Time of Their Lives later on. But anyway, the girls they line up, and apparently they do this most nights, according to the dialogue between Peggy Ryan and Martha O'Driscoll. And so it's really, really quite beautiful. It's quite lovely. I'm just going to give you a little sample of it, just to give you an idea of the type of music this movie embraced. All right, and that's it. I know that doesn't appeal to a lot of people. It might be a little too, Lawrence Welky, but I don't know.
Thank you, and now Bobby's going to make a sissy all over the stage.
All right, let's move on. Sorry. He just ran in and grabbed the microphone. I couldn't stop it. It couldn't be helped. All right. One of my favorite scenes is coming up now, so to speak. You'll know what I mean in a minute. Dice. Right? And I'm not talking about Andrew Clay. I am talking about suddenly Lou has a pair of dice that he happened to find in Lon Chaney's things, and it's his special dice. It's his favorite pair of dice. And he shows it to him, and Bud says, "You better hide it. Here comes Peggy." Peggy Ryan is coming. So Lou puts it in his mouth, puts the two dice in his mouth, and she's having a conversation with him, and he can only go, And eventually, what does she do? She kisses him, or she slaps him on the back or something?
She kisses him, yeah.
Kisses him, and he swallows the dice, of course. And every time he hiccups, it sounds like, when you have the dice in the cup for Yahtzee, that sound? That's what it sounds like in his stomach. So when Lon Chaney comes back, Bud has to tell him that his favorite pair of dice are now in Lou's abdomen. So they do a version of a dice routine with a fluoroscope. Now, a fluoroscope is a very early X-ray machine. That's what they called it then. Mm-hmm. And what they did is they shook Lou up and down, right? Shaking him, and it sounds like Yahtzee. And then they put him behind the X-ray machine, and we see what what comes up. And Bud goes right into it. He goes, "Look at this. That's 5. 5's my point. I'll give you $10." And they're betting. And there's Lou, sitting there by the X-ray machine. So Lon Chaney doesn't want just a shake. He puts him on a table, and he spins the table like like he's the roulette wheel, and you hear the chuck-a-luck, the dice, and Bud wins again. And what happens at I think he gets snake eyes. He coughs up the thing, and he gets snake eyes, and he loses for Bud. And Bud, of course, goes, "Snake eyes," and slaps him in the face. And that's the end of that scene. But it really is a good scene. It's shorter than I remembered, but it really is a good scene. Okay, and then we immediately go into another song, which might not. Again, it might not play well with people, but you have a fast forward machine. But a button. But if you a fast forward machine, well,
there goes that machine. Run, get it.
Yeah, but you'll be missing one of the greatest violin solos you'll ever not only hear but see. Right?
Yes, she is incredible.
Mm-hmm. with those magic fingers, not
Yes.
violin, magical
Yeah.
fingers. And what is that? I meant to look up the name of that piece that they do,
Oh.
but I completely forgot to do it. But anyway, I guess now everyone knows what it is.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, you just look at this woman and you just wonder, what is her rosin bill? You know, it's got to be big. So I bow to her bow. So she does this wonderful, wonderful classical number. It's fast and it's amazing. And this is one of my favorite scenes, and it doesn't have Bud and Lou in it. Charles Dingle, Mr. Pain in the Butt, hears this wonderful concerto played by Evelyn and her magic fingers. And he says to Phil Spitalny, what good is this? You know, what good is just listening to music if they don't know, you know, what they're talking about? And he says, oh, no, they know what they're talking about. And he picks Peggy Ryan. Peggy Ryan gets up and speaks this like minute-long, perfectly correct explanation of every movement of the piece. And of course, Charles Dingle's mouth is wide open. And he says, oh, okay, well, all right, she's got it, but let's try Molly, you know? So another reason to get rid of her out of the college. And she gets up and we're all like, oh no, she's going to blow it. She repeats it word for word. And it starts slow and it builds and then it sucks us in. And we know what she's doing. And it's just terrific. It really is a terrific ending to that scene. So that proves to Mr. Smarty Pants that the girls are getting a musical education from Phil Spitalny. I'm sorry, it's Phil Spitalny. All right, now here is a repeater. Matthew Coniam likes this version better than the one in One Night in the Tropics, and that is the Jonah and the Whale story.
Yep.
And he likes this one because there's a bit more at stake here. You've got a room full of girls, right? And apparently, and this is something I noticed last night, Jerry, Abbott and Costello were not known for rehearsing. I think we know that. We've established that. I think the girls' reactions are real as they're watching the guys.
I agree completely. And to me, that's one of the reasons why I also prefer this version of this story, because you've got a live audience enjoying it as it's going on. And yes, I am in agreement with you. I seriously doubt any of those girls heard any of this routine before the camera started rolling.
Yeah, unless they saw One Night at the Tropics.
Well, yeah,
or One Night in the Tropics. But yeah, I think I'm coming over to your side, and I think this one is more effective, I should say. And boy, oh boy, at the end, it is merciless on Lou. I mean, it just fixes on him. This is the story where he says he has an original joke he wants to tell the girls, and it's a story about Jonah and the whale. And he tells Bud, "I don't need you in this. You just have to be quiet, and I'll tell the joke. It's brand new. It's mine." And of course, Bud interrupts him at every moment, and of course, ruins the punchline for him at the end, thus causing the humiliating slow baton march from the desk to the door as Bud just keeps just chiding him and not letting up at all. It's so sad. It really is sad, but it's funny. It's very funny.
It is. And that also points out my biggest complaint against this routine in One Night in the Tropics, because they're in the backseat of a car.
Yes.
And Lou can't leave.
They're
driving down the road, and he can't leave. So he just kind of sits there. But even they did this on their TV show as well. One of their, I think it was In Front of the Curtain.
Yes.
Routines. And he actually exits off the stage during that whole thing. And so to me, that is the button that the piece needs, which is why, I don't think it works as well in One Night in the Tropics.
I think you hit it on the head. It needs that long, slow, humiliating baton march. You know? And you know how that worked out. So anyway, so they do Jonah and the Whale. It goes over very well. Girls laughing. And then there's that point where he does that big dramatic goodbye scene with Peggy Ryan.
Hattie, the time has come to say goodbye. Patty, the time has come to say goodbye. Patty, the time has come.
You just said that.
You shut up. Goodbye.
And that leads into one of my favorite parts of the movie, Let's Play House. Now, this is a song that Peggy Ryan and Lou Costello do together. And at the very beginning, Lou looks at us and says, I feel just like Donald O'Connor, because that was her partner at the time, and he was in the service at the moment. So Lou was giving his own service at this point. So they do this really cute, catchy number. It sounds a little bit like this.
Let's play house. Let's play Mr. and Mrs. My main reason for this is there'll be chances for plenty of kisses. Let's play house. Let's play games. I think that would be chummy. Golf or maybe gin rummy. Let's play bridge and we'll both be the dummy. Let's play games. Let's quote from Mother Goose and we'll find rhymes that fit. Like Mary had a little lamb and darling you are it. Oh, let's play house. I'll bring flowers and candy. I think that would be dandy. Guys like me sure come in mighty handy. Let's play house.
Now, the weird thing about this number is that Lou chose to sing it out of key and in a register that you couldn't reach with a ladder. You know what I mean? It's he's singing way up and he's playing. He's just playing with it. He's not taking it very seriously. But they seem to be having a ball.
Yeah.
And I love when he does Charles Boyer, meet me by the gas pipe. And then the little dance they do where they're bumping their butts together and all that.
Yeah.
Very, very good. Very, very fun. And the button is just fabulous. You see them leave the room and the camera stays behind and there's a stairwell and it goes down and she goes down the stairwell. Lou is on the other side of the stairwell and he goes up, but there are no stairs there. So it's like this crazy optical illusion and then it fades out. I love this movie. I don't know about you, but I love this movie. Okay. Then we find out, sadly, no, it's sad. Yeah. Diane, the pain in the neck's daughter, Charles Dingle's daughter, June Vincent, has the scene where she finds out that she's not in the running anymore and that Donald Cook loves Molly. But she handles it so beautifully that that's really a nicely written scene. Very mature, you know? She steps out of the way. She says, I'm still going to be your good friend and I'm rooting for you all the way. You know? It's just kind of nice.
It is. It is.
Unlike Ann Gillis in Society, you know, who's kind of standing off to the side making catty remarks.
Yeah.
Let's see. So we have that scene, which is nice. And then there's a farcical scene. There are no women allowed in the caretaker's, especially the bedroom. And there happens to be two of them there when Lon Chaney knocks on the door. So they have to get Molly out, and they do that. There's a window there, and they lift her up, and they push her out the window, and they forget that Peggy Ryan is also there. She's smaller, I guess, and easier to miss. She is little.
What I love about that is, yes, Peggy Ryan is there as well. There's the knock on the door. Oh, my gosh. And she and Lou get Molly out the window.
Right.
And then they both stand there and go, wow, that was close. We should. Oh, my goodness.
Oh, my God. Yeah. One of those moments. Oh, my God. And then there's the whole, they can't get her out in time. And Lon actually comes in, right? So she gets under the bed. It becomes this thing where Lou says, no, sleep on the other bed. I'll sleep on this one. This one's more comfortable. I want you to have a comfortable sleep. And in the meantime, she's rolling under the other bed. So it's a big thing where they have to switch beds back and forth. He keeps rolling under the other one. It's really, really cute. And it's a really nice farcical scene that really could have played in any two-reeler, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And then the ending again. Lon Chaney puts his shoes up near the window, right? Just, I guess, for airing. I can imagine what they smell like. Mm-hmm. And, right. So they're there. And at one point, he notices that his shoes are missing, and he grabs Lou by the lapels and he's yelling, "Where are my shoes? Where are my shoes?" And suddenly they come flying through the window, hit him in the back of the head. And of course he's knocked out, and that's the end of the scene. But it's every ending, every button to the scene works. In every scene I've mentioned, every button works. And that's not always the case. So it's kind of nice. It's kind of neat. There's a little thing a piece of business that Lou does in between these next two scenes where he's actually outside doing his caretaker job, and he's raking leaves. And he looks around and he takes a little jackknife out of his pocket. He reaches down to the lawn and cuts a stretch of it, lifts it up, and sweeps the leaves under the lawn, and then puts the lawn back. So basically, he was doing what he was trying to do in the room, you know, and the rug wouldn't let him.
Yep.
And that lawn was named Chaney, Lon Chaney.
There you go.
Oh, that was terrible. Anyway, I got to stop smoking grass. Where are we? So now
my job is to push the buttons. My job is to push the buttons. My job is to push the buttons. Yes, Nick. Where are we now?
No wonder Red Button sued you. You pushed the button. Okay, so he wants Kirkland now. Charlie Dingle wants $20,000, which is owed in the mortgage, or else he's going to close down the school, or just get rid of the dean anyway and run it his own way, making college great again. And so that's the story. They have to raise $20,000. So how do they do this? First thing Bud says, too bad we can't get a racehorse. We could, you know. So what they do is they want to raise $1,000 so they can bet against the basketball team that they're playing. So they would bet 20-1. Mm-hmm. So they would take their 1,000 and bet against 20,000. Right? I never understood the fairness of that in a way, but I guess that's what gambling is all about.
Yeah, it is.
That's what the word means, right? So basically they have to raise $1,000, and there happens to be a wrestler in town doing a wrestling show, the Masked Marvel. And Bud happens to know him, of course, probably from his old carnival days, you know, when he was bilking people. And he meets Sammy Stein, our friend Sammy Stein, who's been in like 4 or 5 Abbott and Costello movies already. And he plays the Masked Marvel. And he says, yeah, I love this. I get to eat ice cream sundaes every day. I'm making money and blah, blah, blah. So Bud makes a deal with him. He says, you want to make $500? And he says, how do I do that? He goes, I'm going to put a ringer in. You allow him to win, right? I think it's $1,500 is the prize or something like that. Anyway, they stand to make $1,000 if the Masked Marvel will lay down. We'll throw the fight. Okay, so Bud fixed the fight. So it comes to him telling Lou, and Lou is like, no, I will not. I will not. And he's too tall, and he's holding up his hand up here. There's an outtake where he's saying, no, I won't. And Bud says, you will. And he says, I won't. And Bud says, you will. And Lou says, screw you. Not exactly witty, but, you know.
It did break the tension a bit.
This starts, you know, the typical. Now, I have to tell you something, Jerry. I think this is my least favorite part of the movie. Yeah, I'll tell you why.
Okay.
I think that this trope was, wrestling with the comic and throwing him around and all this stuff. It was done much better as a boxing match in Buck Privates.
Yep.
It looks like it was filmed in somebody's basement. You know what I mean? Yep. It's so low budget. And just the trope itself was done better like in movies like Foreign Legion, Abbott and Costello and the Foreign Legion. That was satire, what they were doing with wrestling.
Yes.
Even the boxing match in Invisible Man, Meet the Invisible Man, brilliant stuff.
Oh yeah.
This to me was kind of like a string of, almost like an afterthought, a string of corny jokes, stuntmen. Nobody, Lou. It was only close-ups of the guys, and the jokes weren't all that funny, to be honest with you. Oh, tell them I'm all tied up, all that kind of quality. Yeah. So that's, to me, that's why I don't give it a full 4 stars. I give it 3.5 because of that one scene. That's just the way I feel. How do you feel about that?
Well, I'm actually in agreement with you. It does appear to be a tacked on afterthought of a scene.
Yeah.
And yes, it is done so much better in other places.
I agree.
Especially when you stop and think about those other ones, this really does not compare.
It doesn't measure up. No, definitely not. And they repeated it on the television show where it worked better because the television show was so kind of ramshackle,
Yeah.
It wasn't high budget or anything. So it worked better there. Here, no. This was the one mistake, I think. But then they make up for it. Well, first of all, I have to mention there's another song. Sorry, gang. I'm so sorry. But it's another ballad. And I have to say, it's just beautiful. It's just beautiful. What is it called? Someday We'll Be Together. Someday. Da, da. Oh, no. Yeah. It's I Don't Care If I Never Dream Again, it's called. And it's very pretty. But the funny thing is, the first time I saw this film, this number came up. And I really had to go to the John. And I thought this would be a good time to do it. And I got up and I went. And as I'm coming back, I hear them singing. There is a woman who is an alto, which would be, if it was the male, it would be the bass. It would be the deepest voice. I thought, oh, my God, they have a man in the group now. I've got to see who's this guy? I went down and there's this, attractive woman with the voice of a man, the singing voice of a man. It's just amazing. But that's how they did it. That's how they got those great harmonies. And it reminded me of the Marx Brothers movie Go West, which is our absolute worst film ever. June McCloy, who plays the blonde that Groucho goes after, has the same kind of voice. Yeah. She sounds like a man. It's amazing. Anyway, I'm more fascinated by that than, any 6 people. Possibly 7. So, okay, now everything is forgiven with this next scene, and it's got a history behind it. This is oyster stew. Okay, the boys they need a little break, they need a little rest and relaxation, so they go to a diner, and Bud is reading the paper, and Lou gets a bowl of oyster stew. Now, let me go back. This was first done in a Max Sennett comedy in 1926 by Billy Bevan, or Bevan. We're not quite sure what the pronunciation is. I usually call him Bevan because it sounds fancier. Yeah. But Billy Bevan did it in a movie called Wandering Willies. I'll leave that where it is. And it was directed by a gentleman by the name of Del Lord, one of the great two-reel directors. His specialty at Sennett was driving the Keystone Cop's car, and he knew just how to hang it over the cliff without going over. That was his specialty. It's amazing. But he started directing. Yeah, he started directing, became one of the great directors, and he did the oyster stew thing with Curly in 1941. He directed that too. I think it was called Dutiful But Dumb.
Yes.
And Curly does a great job, of course. He's incredible. And then they decided to do this with Lou. Now, the reason they had this material was because of a gentleman by the name of Felix Adler, who had written on other Abbott and Costello films and was a regular writing for, the Three Stooges and other Columbia people. And, of course, people way before that. And he was not Felix Adler, the famous clown, by the way. He was completely different. But anyway, Felix Adler put this in, and I think it's improved. I have to say this. I know everybody's going to go, oh, no, Curly was better. Curly was great. But the difference between Curly and Lou Costello is the fact that Lou Costello is a good actor. Curly Howard makes noises and grunts, and he crosses his eyes, and he spins around, and he does everything a real person doesn't do, and that's why we love Curly. But it does hurt him in the believability department. I don't see Curly as a real person. I see him as a cartoon character.
Yes.
Lou is an everyman who is confronting this really angry oyster in the street. And half the fun is Bud behind the newspaper hearing this horrible wrestling match between Lou and this disgruntled oyster, and he just keeps saying, "What are you doing over there? What are you doing? You don't have to bathe in it," that kind of thing. And of course, he does the thing with his tie where he puts the pin at the end of his tie. Then he takes a little piece of bread, puts it on his bait, and he holds it up, and the clam grabs it and pulls his face into the soup. It really is funny. The whole scene is just fantastic.
Yes, it is.
And I really think that Bud makes the difference. Having Bud there rather than just Curly, reacting to himself. Okay, they do the wrestling match. I do want to mention the one thing that made me laugh more than anything else was the advertisement on the back of Lou's robe. It says, Mal's Mayonnaise, the biggest spread in town. And of course, the biggest spread in town is across his butt, Okay, so they actually win the wrestling match. They get their $1,000. They make the bet at 20-1, so they have to win this game for Bixby against Carlton. Now, why did they take such a chance? Joe Kirk, Lou's brother-in-law, is the main gangster here, and he's in cahoots with Lon Jr. So why did he take this bet, which seems so seemingly unfair? It's because Lon Chaney knows ringers, all female Amazons over 6 foot tall, who will come in and play for Carlton and, of course, beat the crap out of Bixby. So anyway, that's what they're facing. And the basketball game is just so funny. It's special to me because when I was a little kid on Long Island, I lived in North Massapequa. And one of the next towns over was Farmingdale. And Farmingdale had an indoor farmer's market. But in the market were all these wonderful kiosks of magic tricks and toys. And then there was this little makeshift movie theater where they showed Super 8 sound movies on a sheet. It might have been, no, it was before Super 8 sound. This was 16 millimeter they would show. And the very first one I remember seeing was the basketball game from Here Come the Co-Eds, which I never saw before. And for the rest of my childhood, I was like, what is that movie? What is the one where they're playing basketball? And they didn't show it on TV in my lifetime until I was like 12, 13, around there. Where I first seen that scene, probably when I was like 7 or 8. Wow. But anyway, yeah, it's weird. It was very weird, but it was such a great thing, that market. We used to look forward to it. And a lot of people look forward to Kevin Brownlow's additions to these podcasts. I've been hearing some wonderful, wonderful things. And coincidentally, at the same time I was really reveling in the glow of the wonderful things I'm hearing about this, I get a note from Kevin Brownlow, and he found something that is so essential if you are a Bud Abbott file. And I'm going to show you what it is now because nobody knows about this. This is incredible. Okay. When they were at MGM, they were pretty much working alongside on the next studio, Lionel Barrymore in the Dr. Kildare series. Now, Lionel would wheel himself over to usually stage 28 to watch The Boys, but he had a special affinity towards Bud Abbott. He felt that Bud Abbott could have been a really great actor. And a lot of us feel that way. A lot of us feel that he could have been a really good character actor. But Lionel wanted to help him out, wanted to give him lessons while he was there. He wanted to help Bud become a better actor. And we have actually some audio from their first encounter. Hold on. Here it is. Hold on. Here we go. Ready? Lionel, I want to thank you for this. This is very kind of you. Not many people say this, you know? You know what I'm saying? No, don't get up. I'm kidding. It's very funny, Bud, but I want to teach you a little bit about the Bard of Avon. Oh, Betty hates those products. They dry her skin. It's terrible. They're constantly ringing the doorbell. Avon calling, Avon. I don't think you know what I'm talking about, Bud. I want to give you a lesson here, some training. Oh, that's very interesting. Talk about Lionel Trains. Ha! Get it? Lionel Trains. See, Lou's not the only one. He's not the only funny one. You know what I'm saying? Listen to me, Bud. Here's the lesson. It's very, very pure. Listen to me reciting some Shakespeare, and you tell me what you feel as I'm saying it. You understand? Yes, I get it. That's us. Certainly. Yes. All right, now listen. To be or not to be. What do you mean to be or not to be? What is this, an apartment building? Get out of here. What are you, nuts? Go away. Bud, get away. You're hurting my face. Well, you've been hurting ours for years. Get out of here. What are you? Get out of here. It ends there. I think Bud may have come out of that a better actor, I think. Don't you? Don't you feel that way?
I'm having a hard time deciding how I feel right now, actually.
Hey, it could be worse. You could be Lionel.
That's true, yes.
And it's a good thing he knew Dr. Kilgare. So anyway, getting back, I just want to finish up now here. We have the basketball game. Now, the basketball game. According to Gene Yarborough, Lou kind of messed with everybody because Lou was an expert basketball player. He was a championship basketball player from Paterson, New Jersey. The state of New Jersey, he was the number one foul shot shooter for, I think, like 3 years in a row, 4 years in a row, something like that. But anyway, he was incredible. But he played dumb. Oh, is this the ball? Oh, so where do I throw it? I throw it that way? That way, And then they started shooting, and chins started hitting the floor. Kung, kung, kung. You could watch it in the film. They're not faking that. He's making these trick shots. He's, the last one, of course, he didn't do, where, he throws it against the backboard and it goes all the way back to the other team's basket. Now, that is one of the greatest endings, I think, to a comedy sports segment. That final shot is just, it leaves them there trying to figure out how it happened.
Yes,
it's very funny. But anyway, what we're getting at is the ringers show up and they're kicking the crap out of poor Bixby College, and then they decide to get their own ringer, and it happens to be a real ring-a-ding-dinger, Lou Costello. And he dresses up in a Bixby outfit. He doesn't bother to do any of the pulchritude.
No,
he looks like a little boy in that outfit. But he has curly blonde hair underneath a helmet. So, it looks like he's a girl, I suppose. It's very contrived. It's very goofy, but it works.
Yes.
And he gets hit on the head. Now, in true Lord Paddington fashion, for those of you who love Jump at Oxford, they convince him that he's Daisy Dimple, the greatest female basketball player in the world. And sure enough, he gets up and he thinks he's Daisy Dimple, and he's making all these amazing Lou Costello shots. And eventually, it comes to the last shot where he's hit on the head again, and he's back to being Oliver. We didn't mention his name, Oliver Quackenbush, by the way. But he finally, at the very last shot, before the whistle blows, before the gun goes off, he throws the ball at his own backboard, and it bounces off, flies over everybody, and lands in the opposite direction in the other team's basket. So he loses the game for Bixby. And it's one of those things where we talk about this, the pathos in Lou, when he walks away with it back to the camera. Yeah. This is one of my favorites of those. It's a long shot. First of all, this is shot on stage 28, the Phantom stage at Universal, the biggest one. So the camera pulls back and you see the gymnasium emptying out, and it just leaves Lou, and he's far away, and he just starts walking very, very slowly, knowing that he ruined everything. Mm-hmm. And the following scenes are people giving him the cold shoulder. Bud slaps him in the face. I mean, oh my God. Bud did not mind showing himself that way. He just felt that was his job. It was his job.
Yeah.
You know? You got to admire that. But anyway, he sees that Joe Kirk and Lon Chaney have cheated with the ringers. They're counting out the $20,000. Lou overhears them. He grabs the money and runs. And that starts the big Abbott and Costello chase sequence. And this one is very unique. Mm-hmm. Parked in front of the school building is a car towing a sailboat. They get on the sailboat as the car is driving away. And of course, the other guys are in hot pursuit. So it's this whole thing. It's almost like they're on a boat in the ocean. Mm-hmm. Lou's on the boom of the sail, and it goes out to onto the road. And there's a trailer that pulls up, and a lady's cleaning her dishes, and she throws the water out the window. And of course, it hits Lou in the face. It really is an imaginative scene. At one point, they're going by a ditch where all these ditch diggers have pickaxes, and Lou is still off to the side on the boom of the sail, and one of the pickaxes lodges itself very, very generously into his posterior. It's very funny. Matthew Conium mentions that Lou's butt gets a lot of abuse in these movies. In fact, even the ending of this movie, so to speak, is an assault on his ass. Mm-hmm. So he has sort of an asphalt, about him. So so they go into a train tunnel. The train comes out, without them, and then they follow along, and worse for wear. Let's put it that way. It's a good ending to a really good chase. And then at the very end, you see how they got back to the college. Lou is pushing the boat. He's on a tricycle, and it's a very cute shot. So they have the $20,000. They give it to Charles Dingle. Everything's great. They have a big, what is it called? Those parties?
Pep rally.
A pep rally. They have a big pep rally celebration, and they're carrying Lou, two people. One is Donald Cook, and the other one is supposed to be Bud Abbott, but you don't see his face.
Yes.
I think Bud stayed home. I think Bud probably went to Disneyland or something. He said, "Yeah, anybody can do it. I'm studying with Lionel Barrymore." But
it reminded me of the ending of Horse Feathers. You've got the wedding with Thelma Todd, and you think the groom is Zeppo, but you never see him.
You don't see
until
him.
he gets shoved out of the way, and so it could have been anybody. Same thing here. I saw that and I went, "Wait a minute, Bud's pulling a Zeppo. What is this?"
That's right. He just wasn't there. He didn't feel it was necessary. And Lou was heavy. I mean, he was a heavy guy. When I mentioned his derriere, they're doing 3 cheers, and Peggy Ryan is behind him holding a lighted torch, and she keeps lifting it, hey, and it keeps going into his butt. And Charles Dingle says,
"And may I add, well done, Oliver. Well done."
It certainly is.
That's the end of the movie, and it is a perfectly really good Abbott and Costello movie. If you want to watch a really funny Abbott and Costello movie, it's on YouTube for free. By the way, I got a request from one of our fans that we should talk about our info, where to find the films. So I just want to say that if you go to Amazon.com, all their Universal films in one collection on DVD, which is a bit cheaper, but then they have the same collection, only their Blu-ray, and that's the one I would recommend. It's fabulous. Every Universal movie they made. Time Warner Archives has Rio Rita from MGM, and then there is a collection of Abbott and Costello, Laurel and Hardy, and the Three Stooges. Abbott and Costello are represented by Lost in a Harem, which we talked about already, and their next MGM film, Abbott and Costello in Hollywood. So you can get those there, and you could also get those on Amazon. And what else? Our book, The annotated Abbott and Costello is published
Oh,
by
yes.
McFarland Publishing. And that's a lot of fun if you want to follow along. My website, you can get a lot of stuff on my website. I mean, film clips and write-ups and whatever, you name it. And that's www.nicksantamaria.com. And there are other Abbott and Costello movies, by the way. There's Classic Flicks. Classic
Yes.
Flicks has released a restoration of Jack and the Beanstalk, which looks gorgeous. They also did a restoration of Africa Screams, which also looks gorgeous. Warner Archive also has Abbott and Costello meet Captain Kidd, a really nice print of it, actually. It's bare bones, though. No extras, no closed caption or anything. And what else? What other Abbott and Costello movies? 30-Foot Bride of Candy Rock is also out on DVD.
Yes. The one I have been still searching for at a good price, Noose Hangs High.
Oh, Noose
That
Hangs High.
seems to be hard to find.
It's out of print right now, so it's first of all, it's considered one of their best. It's one of their better movies, and it was independently made, but it was released on DVD. Yeah, it's on Blu-ray too, so you might want to look into that.
I will. Yeah, I found a DVD copy on Amazon that was like $95.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, no,
it's a good movie, but it's
not that good. No.
No way. One more thing I wanted to mention before we finish. There is a number in the movie that I know that if you're an Andrew Sisters fan or Martha Raye or whatever, Peggy Ryan does a song before the basketball game or halftime. Does Jump In on Saturday Night, and it's a great tap number. And she kicks it, man. She just kicks it. She's fantastic. So anyway, so you'll get to see her work with Lou, and the two of them make a great team. And this movie is just a heck of a lot of fun. Jerry, speaking of a lot of fun, I got to tell you, this is the highlight of my weeks. I just have such a ball. Thank you.
Well, I'm glad you do. That way I don't feel like I'm hogging all the good time, because I'm enjoying these tremendously as well.
I'm so glad. I really am. And I hope everyone out there is enjoying it as well.
Well, speaking of everyone out there enjoying it as well, you had shared some information with me earlier before we started recording about just how much people are enjoying these.
Thank you for reminding me of that. I'm really excited about this because, first of all, on YouTube, some of our podcasts are getting like over 2,000 listens. In Society has 2,142 or something like that. Some others are close to 1,000 listens. I don't know why In Society was more popular than all the rest, because it's not a movie you think of right away. You think of Buck Private, you think of Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, Who Done It. But it's very interesting that this one was so popular. And this is just YouTube. I'm not even talking about all the other Apple. Apple is the other highest one. People are listening to us on Apple. And I just want you to enjoy. If you really like this, keep with us. I guarantee it's going to stay the same quality as we go. And I'm just looking forward to just getting to every movie. It's so exciting. Next is one of my favorites, another positive one coming. It's called The Naughty 90s. And it to me, it includes the best version of Who's on First ever.
Yes.
So that one will be a lot of fun. So join us and spread the word. We really appreciate you being here and listening and enjoying. And Jerry, again, have a wonderful 2 weeks, and I will see you when we hit the Naughty 90s. Take care, everybody. Be well.